Good afternoon, folks. Let's take a brief look at this Sunday's gospel reading, the story of the Prodigal Son. It's a famous story. It comes right in the very center of Luke's gospel. And I think from the very beginning, before you even look at the parable, it's important to keep in mind to whom it is addressed. It says, the problem was that Pharisees and scribes were complaining of Jesus. They felt that it says, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So they couldn't handle that. So it says, to them, Jesus addressed this parable. So it's addressed in this situation, or in that situation, is addressed primarily to tax collectors, to Pharisees, and to scribes. And I think the problem was that their image of God was too small, as happens many times in life. So you know the story. You've heard it. We've all heard it a million times before about the man who had the two sons, and the younger son saying to his father, "Give me the share of the estate that is coming to me," and the father divided up the property. But in asking for his share of the estate, normally that wouldn't happen until after the father would have died. So basically, it was almost, if nothing else, was like wishing his father was dead. So he gets what he's looking for, and we're told that he takes off for a distant country where he squanders his money on loose living, and like always happens in situations like that, there's only so long he can squander it, because ultimately the money is going to run out, as happened in this situation, that he ran out of money, and he was desperate, and he was so desperate that he went to a farm, and he would have eaten the slop that was fed to pigs. He was taking care of the pigs in that instance, and he'd hoped that he'd be offered that, which is about, especially for a Jewish young man, that would be about as low, anything to do with the pigs. It would have been about as low as you could go. So he was pretty desperate. So it was in that situation. We are told that eventually he came to his senses, and I think it's a very powerful expression. He came to his senses. In other words, he finally woke up, and that's a little phrase that we all need to keep in mind. We all need to, at different stages of our lives, we need to come to our senses, and realize that we've sort of been going in the wrong direction, and that's what happened in his situation. And so he decides that he's going to go back to his father's house, and he was going to ask to be made a servant, because he feels that he's not worthy of anything else. And so we know the story that he sets out for his father's house, and we're told that while he was still a long ways off, his father caught sight of him, and he was deeply moved. He ran out to meet him, and right there is just it's just hard to conceive of that, in a sense that this man has really seriously wounded his father by what he has done. And yet we're told it's almost as if the father was sitting there on the hill, waiting for his return. And when he sees him way off in the distance, we're told that he runs off to meet him, and he throws his arms around him, and he says, "Quick, put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet." He sort of says that before the son has rehearsed what he's going to say to his father, and he finally gets to say, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands." So that was his confession, if you will. But the father if he heard it, he just sort of went in one ear and out the other. That he was so excited that when he had him back, and so he said to his servant, "Quick," he says, put the ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. Let's have a big celebration, because this son of mine was lost and is found, and so let's kill the fatted calf. So let's have a huge celebration, which it's sort of mind blowing, in the sense that the father in that situation would do that for an errant son. And of course it is a reminder to us like the story really, even though we refer to it as the story of the prodigal son, it's really the story about the merciful father. The merciful father is the key figure in the story. And the message, of course, of the story is talking about God's love, God's grace, and especially about God's forgiveness. The fact that God cannot, it's almost as if God cannot not forgive us as has happened in this situation. So that's the message. It was the message for the scribes and Pharisees at the time, but it's a message for the people of every age, because there is that danger sometimes that we turn God into a sort of an extension of ourselves, and we don't allow God to be God, and the realization of who God is. You know, your image of God is certainly growing up, is sort of tied up with your image of the significant authority figures in your life. Usually the mother and the father, some of you a grandparent or whoever. Like growing up, your image of God is sort of an extension of who that person is in your life. So if you have a very judgmental, difficult father, for example, then that's going to be sort of transferred into your image of God. So unless you have a very kindly, loving father or loving mother who treats you like royalty all the time, your image of God may be skewed anyhow. So image of God is so vital to the whole of our spiritual lives, and even though at different stages of our lives our image of God may be off, certainly we have I think the responsibility and also the opportunity at different times of in a sense readjusting who God is in our lives. And then of course, just quickly, the second son is no better than the first one. He stays home and he takes care of the property and takes care of his father. But when he comes close to home and he hears the celebration going on, he gets mad. He gets mad because of what the father is doing for the son. He cannot understand either. He cannot understand how the father could be so forgiving. Like himself, obviously, he cannot forgive his brother. He won't even refer to him as his brother. He refers to him as when your son comes home. So he cannot even refer to his brother as his brother. So he's no better off. He's no better off than the first son. And we're told that because he was so upset that he wouldn't go into the party. And I suppose we're left at the end of the day, we're left with the question: Did he subsequently wake up and go into the party? And of course, we don't know the answer to that question, but it's a good question to ponder for ourselves. It's a good question. Can we? What is my image of God right now, and to what extent does the story of the prodigal son help me to understand who God is, that the God who I worship and the God who hopefully at the end of my life will take me to heaven. I really understand who he is and what he's calling me to say and to do. Thank you.